I want our audience to see the headline. I read this today in Haaretz newspaper in Israel. I think this is, the headline is Netanyahu's Iran dilemma.
Right, there it is.
Getting Trump to act without putting Israel on the front line. You understand, folks? This is an Israeli newspaper. This is not a true news headline. This is a headline in an Israeli newspaper today, Haaretz. You can't get any more Zionist, Jewish than this newspaper. Put it back up on the screen one more time. Netanyahu's Iran dilemma. He's got a problem. Netanyahu has a problem. He's got to get Donald Trump to act to start a war with Iran without putting Israel on the front line. In other words, there ain't going to be any Jewish soldiers from Israel dying in this war. It's going to be American men dying in the war.
That's right.
So that Israel can conquer another country without losing one drop of Israeli blood. That's what this story is saying.
Yes.
And the Israeli newspapers are open about it. Hey, here's our prime minister has a problem. He's got to get America to start this war without getting Israel in it. But if I said it, I'm an anti-Semite. I'm a bigot. I'm a hate monger if I said this, Doc.
Right.
But the Israeli Jewish newspapers say it, and nobody says anything. And then if I just quote them, I get slammed.
Right.
That's not fair, is it?
It's not fair, but that's the way it is now.
It is, because who controls the media in this country? The Zionists.
It's a media war.
So who writes the headlines against me? The Zionists. I mean, we're up against a Zionist news media machine. And if they set the terms, they set the headlines, and if you question them, if you quote them, they slam you.
Well, Mike Evans, the head of the Friends of Zion, we played the clip on Friday, noted that he wants to fight an ideological and a media war on behalf of Israel, and that they already are in the midst of doing this.
Well, his old butt won't be in a uniform fighting, will it?
That's right. Nor will any of his family.
John Hagee won't be in a uniform either. They all want this war, but they want somebody else's sons to die in it.
That's right.
I'd like to know what they're getting out of all this. Seriously, I'd like to know what these powerful, influential Christian Zionists in America, I'd like to know what your payoff is. It'll come out someday. Were you promised land in the West Bank?
Resort condo?
Yeah. Were you promised a cushy retirement income? What's in it for you, Mr. Big shot Christian Zionist? What are you getting out of it? Because you sure are working hard for a foreign government. You've got to have something in it. Okay. If any Christian Zionists are still with me, I know you're banging out your emails, calling me all kinds of names and threatening me and everything. I want to revisit a news article. This goes back to the day before the September 11, 2001 attacks. This is an authentic newspaper article published by the Washington Times on September 10, 2001. Nobody that day knew what was coming the next day. The headline was, U.S. troops would enforce peace treaty under Army study. There's the headline right there. You see the date, September 10, 2001. The article was about a U.S. Army study by the Army School of Advanced Military Studies, SAMS, based in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. And this is a training school for the brightest officers in the U.S. Army.
Army Leadership School.
That's right. It's an Army Leadership School. And they wrote a report about President George W. Bush's Israeli-Palestinian peace plan.
The Bush peace plan.
The Bush peace. See, there's been a Clinton peace plan. There's been an Obama. They've all had peace plans. Actually, going back looking at President Bush's peace plan, it was pretty good, Doc.
It's pretty fair. Much better than the alleged plan that we read.
Absolutely. And so President Bush wanted to put 20,000 American troops in Israel.
Right.
To enforce the peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
In a newly created Palestinian state.
A Palestinian state. President Bush was in favor of a Palestinian state, and he was willing to put American troops there to make sure that there was peace between Israel and the Palestinian state. So, I want you to see one line in this article, Washington Post, September 10, 2001. Excuse me, Washington Times. Here's the quote. It says, of the Mossad, speaking of the Israeli Mossad, the Israeli Intelligence Service, the SAM's officers say, wild card, ruthless and cunning, has capability to target U.S. forces and make it look like a Palestinian Arab act. Do you see it there at the bottom of the screen, the last paragraph? This is what the U.S. Army report said. The day before September 11, 2001, the U.S. Army said, speaking of the Israeli Mossad, the Israeli Intelligence Service, they called them a wild card, described Mossad as ruthless and cunning, said that the Israeli Mossad has the capability to target American troops and make it look like Palestinian Arabs killed the troops.
And that's been the modus operandi.
And what happened the next day, Doc? What happened the next day?
Allegedly, Arabs with fireproof passports drove planes into the World Trade Center in New York City, driving us to war in Iraq and Afghanistan.
And here we are now in 2019, and we are still in war all through the Middle East on behalf of Israel.
In our 100-year war.
And so I think that SAM's report by the Army was prophetic. It was God was using that Army report to say, wake up, Americans. You're about to be pulled into a war with Arabs, with the Muslim world. And you're going to be made to believe that something horrible that happened to you was done by the Muslims. But it wasn't done by the Muslims. It was done by a wild card, the Israeli Mossad, that's cunning and ruthless and can carry out attacks on Americans and make it look like Arabs did it.
That's the literal definition of a false flag. They didn't write that. That's a false flag.
That's not my conspiracy theory. That's the U.S. Army report.
The day before, published the day before 9/11.
Yes. You can call me any name you want to call me. That's a U.S. Army report. They warned us. They were telling us what Israel is capable of doing. My friends, we're about to be pulled into another war in the Middle East to attack Iran, and they're going to do it the same way that they did 9/11. There's going to be a horrific attack, and there's going to be all this evidence that it was carried out by Iran. And then the people in America are going to be riled up to anger, to fury, to get revenge. It's going to have to be bloodletting. It's going to have to be revenge. And all the while, the Israeli Zionists are sitting back in their offices laughing and smiling that it worked one more time. And thousands of American soldiers are going to die on a battlefield for Zionism.
An entire generation lost.
I'm doing everything I can to stop it. I'm doing everything I can to expose it. We all got fooled. Look, I knew the official story wasn't right in September 11. I knew that. But I didn't know who did it. I just knew that the story we were given was not right. Anybody with half a brain knew that that story didn't line up. But we were never told the truth about who carried out September 11. And it was a deliberate operation to start a war.
And it worked.
And it worked. And I see American veterans missing arms and legs, missing a sound mind.
Yes. Dealing with PTSD.
Susan and I spent our weekend helping an American Iraqi veteran who's dealing with all kinds of emotional issues. God just dropped him on our doorstep, literally.
Yes.
Literally. Well, it's a long story, but we were alerted that there was an American Iraqi vet stranded on the highway just a few minutes from our house. What are you supposed to do, Doc? I mean, we don't know the man, don't know anything about him, but we know that he's an American vet and he was stranded.
Right.
So what did we do? We went and we found him. Okay, we put him up in a hotel, got him food. It's a long story, but he just got saved, just recently got saved. All right, God's working in his life, but he's got all kinds of issues because of what was done to him in Iraq.
Right.
He actually served in the same company that Edward served in.
Yes, 3rd Infantry Division at Fort Stewart. So we had a lot to talk about. The man has been through war. He actually been in a war in Iraq. And he's come back with all these scars, all these memories that the military did not help him out with. Now he's turning to Jesus Christ to be his healer.
That's right. And so there's an example, but there are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of American veterans who are dealing with all kinds of problems, and they should never have been forced to go through it, because the whole purpose of it was not to defend America. It was to fight for Zionism.
Yes.
And I'm trying to make the American people mad. I'm trying to make you mad to say, no more. No more. What does it take to make you mad? When do you rise up and say, no more war? We're not giving another son for Israel. That's it. If we fight, it's to defend our country from an invader. But we don't go to another country to fight somebody else's enemy. And I'm tired of it, Doc. And I see it. Here we go again. We're getting ready to do this again.
Yes.
And 5 years from now, we're going to be talking about the lies that were told in 2019 to get us in another war.
Yes.
But we'll have to bear the cost of that decision made this year.
And it's bankrupting the United States of America.
Both financially and morally.
Yes. Draining our resources.